Alright, so week number 1, this is or hashtag 2. We have pages 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, and 24. So basically we're talking about how to put your finger on the strings and playing the modified chords. Now if you notice on page 18, right where it says 3 blind mice, right underneath there it says C, has a little picture of a C and then a chart. And the chart should line up like this. So you're looking at it just like this. And if you noticed, underneath the C there's a row of XXX and then an O and then nothing and then an O. What the X's mean, you don't, when you get your finger on the guitar, you don't strum those particular strings. So what you're seeing is, you underneath the C, that dark line is the nut. Remember we talked about the nut, and then you got all the strings. So if you look at it and you match it up with the picture, this is string 6, 5, and 4, which it says not to strum. And then the O's mean open. O is for open. And if it doesn't have anything on it, that means you're touching the string somewhere. And then, so the third and first string is open, and you have to touch the string on the second string. So what you're looking at is you see a dot right above the fret of the first fret. So we call it second string, first fret. Second string, first fret. So let's look. We got second string. Here's the first. Remember, first is toward the floor. And then you got the second string. Now, it said, the picture says, above the fret. I like to get as close to the fret as possible. That way, you can hear that pitch. So, if you play that particular second string with your finger down, and you got to push hard. Okay, don't just touch it. You got to push, put some pressure on it. Okay, it'll sound like that. So that's the C by itself. If you don't press it hard, you just put your finger on it. It sounds like that. So if you have a little twang sound, that means you're not pushing down. But if you push it down like you're touching the actual fretboard, you'll hear that. Alright, so it says to strum 3, 2, and 1 like this. And that's what it sounds like. So basically you just played a chord. Now this is a modified C chord. The actual C chord is like 2 other fingers that you put down, but that's later, okay? Since it's a beginning guitar course. Okay? So, and then what you see in the actual song is not really notes, it's just a continuation note on the third line of the little staff there, and it's just telling you to strum to a certain rhythm. So, we just establish a certain rhythm, and if you notice there's 4 beats per measure, okay? So you see a little treble clef, and then you got a 4/4, like a fraction. That just tells you it's going to be 4 beats per measure, okay? And then we go 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. Okay, and we just finished the first line, and we jump to the second line. So you just keep going. Second line, 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. And you can see what I did was I counted what it says to do, and underneath there's some words. 3 blind mice, rest. 3 blind mice, rest. See how they run. So, so what I want you to play for me is this. 1, 2, ready, go. Rest. 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 Okay? When you rest, you just put your palm right here. It's easier just to put your palm and stop the sound on the rest rather than putting your fingers down here, because then you got to reset your finger, especially if you're using the same finger structure for the whole song. You just kind of dampen there. Okay? So that's page 18. Page 19, it's just counting time. So you basically just do what you did before, but here's what you do. You go right at the bottom there, 1, 2, 3, rest, and then the second measure goes 1, rest, 3, 4. Do you see that? So I'm at the bottom. Okay, I'm at the bottom. So it goes 1, 2, 3, rest. Second measure, 1, rest, 3, 4. Okay, third measure is 1, 2, rest, 4. Okay, so look at it. Third measure, 1, 2, rest, 4. And then the last measure, 1, 2, 3, rest. So we do a lot of 1, 2, 3 rest from that song that we just played, Three Blind Mice. So it doesn't say to, but let's do that same C chord. Okay, second string, first fret. Okay, so this is the bottom of page 19. This is what I want you to play for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, rest. 3, 4. 1, 2, rest. 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. Okay, you don't have to count while you're playing, but I just was telling you how that would go. So that's just sort of a counting exercise that I want you to do. It's very important to read music correctly in the rhythms, especially if we're doing it online. We kind of have to do it in rhythm. Okay, so go to page 20. Okay, and then it says my second chord. So we worked on this modified C chord, and now we're working on what it says the G7 chord. Okay, it's a modified G7 chord. And so as you look at the big picture there, you got X's on string 6, 5, and 4, and then string 3 is going to be open. Second string is going to be open, and then it says to put your first finger on the first fret. So now, since we're talking about fingers now, the fingers on your hand is going to be 1, then your middle finger is going to be 2, your ring finger is going to be 3, and your pinky is going to be 4. And so they usually use these 3 a lot. 4 is rarely used, and your thumb rarely used, but you're going to use these 3 fingers a lot. But it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So sometimes the ones can get confusing. You're not sure what they mean by 1, so hopefully we can discuss that as we go along. So you take your first finger, it even has a picture for you. If you can see the picture, exactly where you're going to place that finger. So first string, first fret, and then once you get it set, you do strings 3, 2, and 1. Remember, 3 is open, 2 is open, and first string is. There we go. Like that. Okay, it's your modified G7. Okay, and then the song, my second chord, I'd like for you to play just like this. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so no rest in that one. It's just straight 8 strums right there. Okay. All right. So that's page 22. So now you're going to be playing 2 different chords. Now, it gives you the picture. So if you notice in the first measure there, you play 1, 2, 3, rest. So you have the C chord. So you have to go get your C chord set. Remember, it's second string, first fret, and it gives you a little picture to help remind you. So, so you hit that 3 times. Second measure, it changes to that G7 that we just learned. So if you look closely, it just says first string, first fret. Well, you can look at it a little bit common sense. You go from second string, first fret, drop your finger down to first string, first fret. So you're just going back and forth like that, if you can see. Okay, so it's like rest, and then okay. Third measure doesn't have anything. Which chord do you play? Well, if it doesn't change, then you play the same chord you just did. So it stays that chord until it tells you to change. Make sense? So you got G7 for the second measure. Third measure, there's nothing there, so that means you play the G7 for another measure. You rest, and then you go back to the C chord for the last measure. And notice I had to adjust my fingers. course, if you look close, I've got little string marks on my finger. And it'll hurt for the first few days that you do this, okay? It's the first time I played the guitar in a few months, so my finger's like, hey, what are you doing? So when you play this, and when you're comfortable, you guys got to practice a little bit before you record it, please. And then you just kind of, you go like this. 1, 2, ready, go. Switch. Stay on it. Rest it back to C. Okay, and I made a mistake by hitting the 4th string. If it happens, that's okay, but at least you are showing me that you understand what you're doing, okay? So that's how you read multiple chords at once, all right? So that's 22. Got a couple more for this week. 23. All right, so 23, a little bit longer song. It has 2 lines, if you notice, and it's just an extension of the first line into the second line. So let's look at it first. We got C chord for a couple of measures, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. And then it says to switch to the G7 for a couple measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. Okay, and then you immediately go to the second line, and you have to play the C chord for a couple measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. And then it gets a little fast for you. It goes G7 for one measure, and then it switches to the C chord for the last. So it goes G7, 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 and then immediately switch to C, 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 rest. All right, so if you put it all together, 1, 2, ready, go. Rest. Second line, C. Then G7. Okay, then to C. And that's pretty much it. Now, you notice you don't hear the complete C sometimes. That first string sometimes doesn't come out. And what that means is part of my first finger is hitting that first string, so you got to make sure that you have your finger pulled up as far high as you can. Because if you let it sit down a little bit, part of your finger will hit that first string, and you don't hear that first string. So as you play along, you'll see. All right. So that was Skip to My Lou with the modified chords. And then you got one more for this hashtag 002 week. London Bridge. So pretty much just more practice with what we did on page 23. So let's look at it. So you go C, 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 rest. Then you go to G7, 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 rest. And then immediately to C. C, 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 rest. Go to the second line, there's no change, so you stay on that C. And it tells you right there, no new chord symbols, so keep playing C. So second line, C, 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 rest, G7, 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 and then C, C, C. Alright, so you put it all together. 1, 2, ready, go. Second line. Okay, and that concludes hashtag 002, the first week of playing the guitar.